And now, Jennifer.
Noting the time is 5:02, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to order. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Alper.
Present.
Commissioner Menz, absent. Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Olson. Absent. Commissioner Rucker.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
President Pro Tem Abeni.
Here.
And President Forney is absent.
Thank you.
You
I'd
have a
also
quorum.
Thank you. I'd also like to note that Commissioner Menz will also not be here this evening. I also want to comment that we are under a tornado watch until 8 p.m. last I saw, and if the sirens go off, there's some places we could head to in the building, and we'd address that at that time. With that, I'd like to ask someone to please move the agenda for approval.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved, and we might have one item, Resolution 2024-127, coming up from Planning. We have one set of minutes. Would somebody move the minutes and read the date, please?
I will move the regular meeting minutes of June 5th, 2024.
Is there any discussion? All those.
Second
Oh,
the minutes.
thank you. You guys have to be fast. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved.
Does anyone know how to turn off the alarm that's going off somewhere? Okay, awesome, thank you. There's an alarm going off. It's, for those of us that have that hearing register still, it's really loud. Thank
I don't even hear it. Okay.
Yep.
Next, we'll move to the reports of outside, appointees to outside boards, commissions, or committees. Does anybody have anything to report, to share with the group? Oh, okay. We'll have our open time as usual at 5:30. We have no public hearings. At this point, we've moved to the consent business on the agenda. Would somebody like to move the consent agenda, or would anybody like to pull any item for discussion? Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, I would like to pull Resolution 2024-120 for discussion and questions.
Thank you. Okay, would somebody move the consent agenda?
I would like to move the remainder of the consent agenda as a slate.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is passed, and now would somebody go back and,
I will move Resolution 2024-120. This is a resolution authorizing the opening of a minimum 45-day public review and comment period beginning on or after June 19th, 2024 for the draft Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan.
Second?
great. Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, I really appreciated the seventh whereas clause in this resolution that talked about excluding the higher cost capital expenditures from the public engagement time, reflective of the Commissioner's amendment to Resolution 2023-127. However, I noticed that the examples listed in this whereas clause left off one of the items that we mentioned in the amendment. It listed lighting, permanent restrooms, pavement repaving, and trail expansions, but it left off ramp infrastructure. And so I'm just clarifying, with all of our work around the Sioux Line ramp, if there are going to be ramp infrastructure questions in this community engagement questionnaire.
Thank you. Oh, here comes Ms. Christensen.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Abeni. Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer, for your question. So just a quick review that the public comment period for the Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan will be focused on park amenity zones. And that was a way for us to focus not only the trail improvements per board direction from last fall, focused on low-cost amenities, but also a way for us to focus community engagement per board direction from last fall as well. So the amenity zones are areas that basically will offer park-like amenities along the regional trail route, some of which are placed on existing parkland, some of which are placed on our partners' jurisdictional areas, whether it's the county, HICRA, Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority, or the city of Minneapolis. And certainly the Sioux Line Garden and the ramp conversation, I want to underline that design process will be a separate conversation from the public comment period for the Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan. While there is consideration for bringing the Sioux Line Garden into the regional trail boundary, there is not currently an adopted plan for the Sioux Line Garden, and the plan and the engagement sort of process and framing make it very clear that the Sioux Line Garden will be a parallel process for design. So there is certainly no ramp noted in the plan. There are some existing access points, and currently we just have an aerial photograph of the garden as it currently stands with existing conditions in the plan. So, and we'll share more. We have a presentation to all of you planned, and we'll bring it forward. We're hoping to bring it forward in mid-July or maybe a late July meeting. We've also got all sorts of other sort of items around the outreach planned over the next few weeks, including a slow roll this Thursday if the board agrees to open the public comment period. We've got focus groups in different languages, and this is really our one chance to get out to community. This has been a very sort of non-traditional long-range planning process for us, and we're really excited to have it see the light of day. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for confirming that there's no direct or related questions around ramp infrastructure in the current public comment time. I did have another question. You mentioned that there was a consideration of the Sioux Line being within the regional trail boundary. I know that's CPRO and the mall as well. And so if you could just talk a little bit about that as we approved that March 20th. Maybe that's not set in stone by the way you use the word consideration.
That's right. Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. Great questions. So the parks that are adjacent to the Greenway in some cases have been recommended for incorporation into the regional trail boundary. And that is based on streamlining when we have site control, like current operations and ownership of the land. It makes it a lot more streamlined for the regional trail boundary to actually include that entire area of the park versus an amenity zone strip of 20 feet or so into the Sioux Line Garden or into CPRO site or into the mall. And each of those are areas where there are considerations for amenity zones. But the regional trail boundary is absolutely on the table for commissioners to have conversation about, the public to have conversation about during the public comment period, and will absolutely be something that we'll bring to you for consideration when we present the plan. The amenity zones were also placed according to best urban design practices and trail user convenience. I want to underline that including the park in the regional, any of the existing parks in the regional trail boundary does not change their existing or potential future long-range plans that they have adopted. It does not change their current funding status. In fact, I think for ones that are in the neighborhood boundary or in the community garden sort of layer of our system may actually see additional protections under Met Council policy if they're adopted plans as under Met Council's umbrella in addition to our own. Actually gives them, I think in my mind, more protection from a sort of park design or garden feature scale. There's also some things around administratively sort of streamlining our system, so including slivers of parks in a neighborhood boundary or a regional boundary, or a community garden site with a sliver of that in a regional trail boundary might make it really difficult to determine operations or things like park counts. So with our park counts, we work with very clearly delineated regional trail and regional park boundaries, and if those are to be ambiguous, we might have errors in our park count system, which, as you may know, are a really important part of the way we're funded. So for all those reasons, we've sort of made some informed decisions on which areas along the Greenway, continuous and contiguous to the Greenway, might want to be included in the regional trail boundary.
And just one more question. Thank you, that was really helpful. I had if you could just speak a little bit to the funding. Like, for instance, the mall has NPP 20 funds, and now it will also have regional funds. Or how does that happen? I was not really aware that some of our parks could have dual funding, and I'm not certain I've seen dual funding in our long-range plans as far as budgets.
So it is absolutely, there are a few exceptions and areas of our system where there are both neighborhood designated areas and regional boundaries of neighborhood parks. So we have a few examples across the system. I can bring maybe Director Arvidsson up to speak more to the specific examples, but I believe Lyndhurst and Creekview. If you want specific examples, we have a few other.
Thank you, Carrie. Chair Pro Tem Abeni, Commissioner Schaefer, yes, we have, I think, 8 what we call neighborhood areas within regional park boundaries right now, and those have been determined as being eligible for NPP 20 funding because they largely have neighborhood type amenities that don't always get funded by the regional dollars. Right now, the major project that's just getting underway at Shingle Creek does have both regional and neighborhood funding. The neighborhood funding is eligible at just the Shingle Creek portion, whereas the regional is eligible throughout. Recent projects at Riverside Park actually utilized both Mississippi Gorge funding as well as NPP 20 funding for Riverside Park, which is one of our neighborhood enclosure areas. Those are the 2 kind of current major capital projects that have both kinds of funding, but there are other such sites in our system.
So it's not guaranteed that if a neighborhood park is within the regional boundary that, I'm sorry. Yeah. This is my last question.
Okay.
I still have a minute. Is that there's not guaranteed that it's within the regional, let me back up. I got distracted. Within the neighborhood, it's never, you don't always, if they're within the regional boundary, it doesn't necessarily mean it'll have both funding within when their plans come up, but maybe.
President Pro Tem Abeni, Commissioner Schaefer, the equity metrics that we use govern the funding priorities for both the regional and the neighborhood separately. And so they may end up together in the same year and they may not. And I guess an example is if we go back to Shingle Creek Regional Trail, Shingle Creek Neighborhood Park has funding now, but Creekview Neighborhood Park does not have funding until 2029. And so it will have funding for its neighborhood area at that time, but not consistent with when the regional funding is available. And again, that prioritization is based on the equity metrics for those 2 different types of parks. If they come close to aligning, we do try to align them in order to have a big, efficient project, but it doesn't always happen that way.
One more question, Pro Temp. That pot of money then it's still looked over the whole neighborhood park. It's not delineating what is regional and what is neighborhood. It seemed a little bit like you were delineating between spaces within the park with that response. So I'm trying to clarify what that means.
Yes. President Pro Tem Abeni, Commissioner Schaefer, in these types of parks, neighborhood areas within regional park boundaries, the neighborhood area is always entirely within the regional boundary. So within that neighborhood area, regional funding could be spent anywhere in that neighborhood park on facilities that are eligible for that regional funding. So like a ball diamond is not eligible for regional funding, but anywhere within that geography it could. But the opposite is not true. The neighborhood dollars are not eligible to be spent anywhere in the regional park of which the neighborhood is a part. So at Riverside Park, which is part of the gorge, we're able to spend gorge money anywhere in Riverside Park, but we can't spend that Riverside NPP 20 money anywhere in the gorge. That is considered to be local dollars that we use for the local parks, and so it can be only used in the Riverside neighborhood area.
Thank you. I really appreciate your answers.
Thank you. That was actually very clarifying. So, other discussion, questions, comments? Okay, well, let's go ahead and move Resolution 2024-120 for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. So we have some items coming, only one coming from committee.
Jump along to Admin Finance Committee on behalf of our committee. I'll move Resolution 2024-115, a resolution amending the 2024 Capital Improvement Program to allocate $10,303 from the Winona neighborhood portion of the Dibble Hornstein Parkland Dedication Fund for completion of shoreline stabilization and lake access improvements along the south shore of Lake Nokomis, located within Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park.
Second.
Are there any discussion, any questions? And we'll move forward with a vote. All those in favor of this resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That resolution passes. So moving through the agenda, we're down into the discussion items section. And we have an update on activities related to of Owamini Yomini Okodayapi. And Assistant Superintendent Schroeder will be up at the podium. Thank you.
President Pro Tem Abeni, Commissioners, thank you, and nice pronunciation. I know that was the biggest concern of the evening probably so far. We have been working with what we're going to call OO, just to facilitate the conversation tonight, and I'll note that even within the organization, many of its representatives refer to it as OO. We've been working with OO since about 2022 under an MOU that was approved by the board to facilitate the kind of conveyance of the lands around the lock and dam from the federal government to OO. And as we move through that, we've had one update before, but we thought because of where we're at right now in the process, OO is kind of hit a milestone in engaging a firm and advancing forward with design work, and noting that there are some actions that will be coming forward to the board in probably the next 3 to 6 months. We thought it'd be good to bring an update to you, and then allow for questions. Tricia Duvall is here tonight. She is the project advisor for OO, and she'll be making the presentation, and when she's finished, we'll stand for questions. I'll note that if we go just a little bit long, we'll stop at 5:30 so that we can have open time, and we'll rejoin after that.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. And let me begin by saying thanks for having me, and send regrets for Shelley Buck and Barry Hand, who are OO's leadership. And of course, I work very closely with them. Both of them are traveling. And so I'm here to speak really for them. Again, my name is Kirsty Duvall. I'm here on behalf of Owamini Yomini Okodayapi. And if anyone is wondering about the pronunciation, the stressor on the A and the O tells you where to put the emphasis. And mini means water. Owamini Yomini means turbulent water, and Okodayapi means friends. So it's the Dakota translation of Friends of the Falls, which is the former name of this organization. OO is a Dakota-led 501c3 working on the cultural and environmental restoration of this 5 acres of land on the Central Riverfront. Some of you know me. I've been supporting this organization for about 8 years, and I think a few of you know OO's incredibly impressive leadership. President Shelley Buck, who also used to be the president of a tribal nation, Prairie Island, and Barry Hand, who is a teacher, a culture keeper, a Dakota language speaker, and also happens to be the program director for the organization. And on behalf of them both, we thank you for your partnership. So OO's vision is simple, and it's almost crazy how long it's taking to implement. It's a simple vision. It is about celebrating Dakota history and culture at a site of great significance to the Dakota people. This was a sacred site. It was a site of gathering, of diplomacy, of portage. It was a spiritual place, a place to give birth. We're working with partners to transform these 5.2 acres at the heart of the riverfront into a place of healing, restoration, education, and connection. And the vision is grounded and led by Dakota principles and a commitment to indigenize the river. Restoring Dakota culture and indigenous landscape is an idea that came out of the first season of engagement. Michael mentioned that we signed an MOU with both the city and the park board in 2022. Attached to that MOU was a community engagement plan that was about centering Native voices and advancing a plan that everyone could get behind. And this was the outcome of season one, this concept of landscape restoration and the restoration of flowing water, bringing life back to the site. That vision has continued to evolve, and in the second season, which we're just kicking off, tribal nations are playing a much more significant role. And so I think what we're proposing is this really unique condition where this is a 501c3, but it's a 501c3 that has assembled a tribal working group and is really presencing Dakota tribal leaders in the conversation. That has never happened before. It's incredibly unique. In addition to that, there is a programming and partnership committee that is populated by Dakota knowledge keepers. And so this isn't just about saying we value Dakota voices, it's really putting Dakota voices and tribal leaders into decision-making positions and positions of influence in the restoration. Our progress has been incredible. I'm going to give you a little update on 3 points: the conveyance and ownership, integrated design, and the future, which is restoration. So in terms of conveyance, which is that first image, you can see those are the 5.2 acres. Our compliance scope and timeline has been worked through, adopted, and defined with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This is currently federal land, and that work is beginning. Additionally, OO has reached consensus terms with the city of Minneapolis to make OO the city's designee under WRDA. Current congressional language, you may recall, directs conveyance to the city of Minneapolis. And the city and the park board and OO have been working together now for years on this evolution, that OO would become the designee and that the tribal nations would have a special role to play. So we have begun to deliver on those obligations with a newly formed consultant team. On integrated design, that image there is actually just from last week. We had a 3-day kickoff and orientation, bringing the newly contracted multidisciplinary design and engineering team together with tribal leaders, Dakota knowledge keepers, and others, including Michael Schroeder and park board folks, to talk about the future of the site. And one thing you'll notice if you recognize where that image is that those parcel boundaries, which are OO's conveyed land, the ideas don't stop at those parcel boundaries. They cross right over to the mill race and to the riverfront. And so our hope is that this integrated design concept, this concept of coordination, is something that we can continue to grow as we have over these past couple of years together with you. And then finally, the idea of restoration of Dakota culture and landscape. Those are living ideas, and Barry Hand is at the center of envisioning and forming relationships that are going to result in not only living landscapes, but active programs and opportunities for learning and interpretation. So our shared opportunities, and these are really the joint 3 bullets that we've come up with in our regular and recurring coordination meetings with your leadership, are we have an opportunity for coordinated funding pursuits, including an EPA Track 1 project grant of $10 million. We would be looking to work directly with the park board on that pursuit. We have an opportunity for coordinated planning, design, and construction through a proposed coordination agreement, and that would address very commonly needed coordination topics like engagement, design, and finally use and operations. And we would be continuing to look for other points of alignment for programming and site design, ones that we can almost see on the horizon and we anticipate will come, and we look forward to discovering with you. What's next is action on a coordination agreement. Our hope is that we can get that done in August 2024. And so we've been working really closely with Michael Schroeder on that. And I'm sure he will have more to say about that. We're looking at action on the terms of conveyance, hopefully this fall, maybe early 2025. And again, that goes back to those consensus terms that were reached with the City of Minneapolis. We expect that will also come to the Park Board. And finally, President Shelley Buck and Program Director Barry Hand will join you at a future Committee of the Whole meeting so that you can have time with them directly. I am only the agent of this message, not its owner. So, but thanks for having me. This diagram gives you a little bit of a sense of the timeline and some of where those coordination needs are going to lie. So our implementation milestones, you can see starting in 2023, we were thinking about answering the question of ownership. There was an enormous effort in 2023 around that with the City Park Board and tribal nations. And then as we're moving now through 2024, we have selected our design and engineering team, and we are continuing to secure public and private funds, substantial public and private funds to support the project. Coming up, we will finalize design, and that site conveyance will take place. We will formally launch a capital campaign, which, as I said, is already well underway, but we will formally and publicly launch that campaign. 26 and 27 are when we hope to be going out for bid and really constructing these improvements so that we can be operating in 2028. And all along that timeline you see on the top is a period of transformation for OO, which started as an advocacy organization pursuing an outcome and is going to become an operating entity working to sustain this site and these programs. And with that, I leave you with one of the core and central elements of this effort, which is that we are all relatives. And one thing I've learned in this project is that we're designing a place, and that place is not just for people. This idea that we're designing a place for muskrats and butterflies and foxes and the air and the trees and all of the medicines, the way that this project will move forward is a comprehensive design that is really habitat restoration. And so thank you so much for your time. I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you so much, and what a great end to your presentation too, Ms. Duvall. So we do have our open time, so we always pause our meeting where we are and we go to that, but then we'll likely come back for some questions from the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's 5:30, so I'd like to first read the open time rules. So thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during open time. Before we start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of the open time board rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before 3 p.m. the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. And I'll be calling on people on the sign-up list only. Open time for public input shall not exceed a total of 15 minutes with a time limit to be allotted by the president. Please watch the timer to be considerate of others here to speak and stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. So we listen and we don't respond, but there's opportunities to engage with us at another time. Two types of items not appropriate for open time in order to protect the privacy of all individuals. Those are pending litigation and personnel issues. Please refrain from commenting on specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory and/or harassing words directed at anyone, so please ensure that all comments you make tonight comply with the policy. This board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed, so only those signed up to speak may only speak for their allotted amount of time. We also request that each speaker provide his or her name and address, or where you live is fine. And so we have 11 people signed up, so I would like to give a minute and a half to each speaker. And I'll call the first couple of names at a time so people know they're coming up on the list. The first name is Brandon Burbach, and the second name is Barbara Johnson. Brandon Burbach. Barb Johnson. And then after that will be Rachel Wolfers.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Barbara Johnson, and I live at 4318 Xerxes Avenue North. The Met Council has released the supplemental EIS for the Blue Line extension. Included in that report is a statement that the plan's impact on parkland is de minimis. I'm here to tell you tonight that that statement is ridiculous. The planned Blue Line extension dramatically reroutes the Grand Rounds Parkway in North Minneapolis. Quite the contrary, the Blue Line destroys both Theodore Wirth Parkway and Victory Memorial Drive by changing their routes and significantly endangers parkway walkers, bikers, and all who use the parkway. The Blue Line extension plan would destroy the integrity of the Grand Rounds Scenic Byway and do what has never happened before in the Grand Rounds system. The Met Council plan calls for at-grade crossing of the Grand Rounds, at-grade crossing of the railroad in the Grand Rounds. It calls for railroad-style barricades coming down to block the access across the tracks. And they do that while the user of the parkway will be under two bridges with a curving road and trains coming every 10 minutes or less. There have been numerous bicycle, pedestrian, and automobile deaths at light rail crossings. Nowhere else in the park system has the park board permitted very active passenger rail system to cross the Grand Rounds at grade. All right, thank you. I'm going to leave a copy of the State Historic District Designation Law for Victory Memorial Parkway, if I can give it to Ms. Ringgold.
Thank you so much, former Councilmember Johnson. Rachel Ulfers, followed by Sarah Pecora.
Hi there, my name is Rachel Ulfers. I've been here many times. I live at 339 West Elmwood Place. I am a parent of 3 MPS students. I'm one of the Washburn Fast Pitch Boosters. I'm in charge of their player development. I'm also the 612 Fast Pitch Softball Director, and I coach one of the teams. And I'm super frustrated. The Thompson resolution passed 1 year ago, June of 23. In this resolution, we were promised improvements to high school fields with improvements to be implemented in temporary and permanent phases. The Technical Advisory Committee was formed to this end last summer, but they have consistently canceled meetings, wavered in their purpose of providing suggestions as to how and where to improve high school playing fields, and have effectively gone dormant. No meetings have been scheduled since February of 24. No action has been taken to take place to improve one single field at all. Multiple times throughout the course of the TAC, commitments were made on which fields would be improved for the 24 high school fast pitch season, which, by the way, ended like 3 weeks ago. Each time the dates were missed and no field improvements occurred. Any progress on any given field, such as putting up a temporary fence, which MPRB does not allow to be placed into the ground, even in pockets that are mowable over the top, and they don't explain why. Any of those improvements was solely based or due to the school or families on those high school teams. So a fence athletes could slide into the ground in pre-standing, flush to the ground pockets wasn't allowed. There'll be more from my family, just wait.
Thank you. Sarah Pecora, followed by Ellery Ulfers.
Hello, my name is Sarah Pecora. I'm a resident of Minneapolis, 2725 Colfax Avenue South. I'm also a Minneapolis public school parent and a daughter who plays within the same organizations as well that Rachel was mentioning. I was here last April, just a few months ago, also talking about the Thompson Resolution and the need for commitment to Title IX and the equity that girls and women deserve in park spaces, and especially for our high school athletes, the importance that sports plays in all of our lives, and the need for that sort of financial commitment and improvement to these fields. As a high school athlete, college athlete, and former semi-pro athlete, sports has played a tremendous role in my life, and as a mother as well. Just picking up on where Rachel left off, a few things I'd like to note as a board member of 612. We are currently hosting the Fast Pitch State Softball Tournament coming up in 2 weeks. We are having to organize over 100 volunteers to please set up fields and the facilities to host over 400 visitors coming to this state tournament. We're reserving this at Boston Field, but as you can imagine, it's a tremendous thing to have to organize 100 volunteers to set up fields, provide seating, and do all of this accommodation for something that just should be a fun weekend for every parent just to enjoy.
Thank you. Ellery Ulfers, followed by Adeline Ulfers.
Hi, I'm Ellery Ulfers. I'm the varsity captain of the Washburn softball team, and I'm on the 612's top 18U team. I hope 612 will start making plans to take some of our home games to other communities' fields that are suitable for fast pitch competition if there is no action from MPRB. During the Minneapolis high school season, teams don't have this luxury. Every single other field that we play in outside of Minneapolis has proper fields, proper dugouts, proper fences that's always lined up and set up with bases and pitch and rubber distances and chalked. Like literally no other field outside of Minneapolis doesn't have this. The setup has improved this past MPS high school season, but the fields, we do it. They don't do anything. I graduate in 2026, so I will never get to play on any of the permanent fields. But my teammates and sisters will still get to play on them. But I'm still here because I think they should get to, even if I don't get to. Thank you.
Thank you. Adeline Ulfers, followed by Tom Pam, or Tom Sam.
Hi, my name's Adeline Ulfers. I play on the Washburn Fast Pitch varsity team, and I'm on the 14U Navy top team for 612. In a couple of weeks at 612, we're hosting our ever first state tournament at Boston Field, which we are not able to use for league games or practices and have not been able to previously afford to reserve for proper weekend tournaments. As a simple example of problem solving, Boston Field 6 and 7 with temporary fences would be the easiest option for high school ball. It would be easy to move in the current fences and shorten the infield for permanent field options. This plus temp fence on one other nearby field would allow 612 to host events and bring patronage to Minneapolis. Every single neighboring community from St. Paul to St. Louis Park to St. Peter, Edina to Egan to Eden Prairie, and everyone far and near, big and small, even rural, have these amenities at their fields for fast pitch athletes of all ages. MPS again lags behind with no plan. To those on this park board who claim this is not an equity issue, you need to hear that you're wrong, and that's really insulting. Our athletes reside in all areas of the city and beyond. It matters across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Pam, followed by Gail Robinson.
Okay. My name is Tom Pan. I'm the Fields and Umpires Coordinator for 612 Pass Pitch. I live at 5225 Xerxes. I've been the Fields Coordinator and working with MPRB for probably since 2019. And I've seen the scheduling and the coordination we have between the organizations has improved every single year. This year has been it's still been frustrating to try and find adequate fields for these players. My daughter plays on the team too. She's on a 12U team. It's just been trying to. I was actually talking to Sarah about this. It's kind of like playing pickleball on a tennis court, we're asked to play on adult softball fields which aren't adequate for fast pitch softball, because we were just playing at Rod Crew, and if you hit it by if one of the girls is set up and you hit it by them, it's a home run, right? And that's not the case. It changes the game, and it's really inadequate for the players to try and play on these types of fields. We have 3 real fields that are adequate for fast pitch softball that are set up for fences, including Jackson Square, North Commons, and East Phillips. The issue with the fields is we contract our umpires out, and 2 of the fields, North Commons and East Phillips, they don't even go to. So we're really left with 1 field that's adequate for fast pitch softball in the city. That's kind of frustrating. Thanks.
Thank you. Gail Robinson, followed by Renee Kamara Good.
Good evening. My name is Gail Robinson, and I live at 1400 Penn Avenue North. My concern, sidewalk inspection and repair following tree damage on the boulevard. Now, the city of Minneapolis, they continue to plant trees and expect the homeowners to repair the sidewalks. I have reached every department and spoken to every person from the arborist to forestry to risk management, you name it, my city council person. And I'm to the point now, there's a bill, there's an assessment to me, the homeowner, for this tree. And we continue to plant these trees. So my assessment is at the amount of $1,000. And it's unfortunate that no one wants to assist the homeowners in these repairs. I have 2 more trees that will be following this same repair eventually. So I'm concerned about why homeowners are responsible for this. Yes, they did send me an ordinance, but we don't get that ordinance when we purchase homes, that the trees on the boulevard are our responsibility. So I'm a little bit concerned why there can be no assistance in repairing these sidewalks. And this is going to be ongoing. As they continue to plant trees, we're going to have to continue to repair these sidewalks. So I don't know if anyone here and this board can be of assistance, but I have reached out to everyone about this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Renee Kamara Good, followed by Patrick Donahoe.
Hi, my name is Renee Kamara Good. I'm a resident of Minneapolis. I'm a softball mom. I was also part of the technical advisory committee for the Diamond Sports Facility Study. We met 9 times. It was pretty interesting to me because at first it seemed like a puzzle that wasn't going to be solved, but I kept thinking, how hard can it be to come up with 6 fields for girls to play softball in? We met so many interesting, awesome, dedicated people from the board, people in charge of maintenance, people in charge of scheduling. Yes, I think a common theme is lack of funds or money to improve some of those systems. But at the end of the day, I thought we could still come up with a list of 6 fields, and we did in December. In January, when I showed up, they had changed the fields. I was reminded that I was just a volunteer, that I was just there to give my opinion, that at the end of the day, I really didn't have a say. Well, I thought at least we were here, we tried. The February meeting got canceled, and we still don't know what happened. 9 meetings. I work full-time. I'm a surgeon. I examine, I diagnose, and treat. We examined, we diagnosed, and here we are. Nothing's happened. High school season went by. Summer doesn't look any better. I don't know what the plan is.
Thank you. Patrick Donahue, followed by Mary Thies.
Hello, I'm Patrick Donahoe. I live in the Bryant neighborhood in South Minneapolis, and I am a board member of the Bryant Neighborhood Organization. I'm here to advocate for the continued investment in Phelps Park. The park is a highly used and valued part of our neighborhood as a spot for kids to play and for people to meet. While Powderhorn and MLK are both great parks, Powderhorn is a bit of a walk for Bryant residents, and MLK is also great but requires a trip across the highway. Along with that, Phelps is a useful green space for a neighborhood that's between 2 highways and helps deal with that pollution. Phelps is an important fabric in our neighborhood, and I hope you continue to support it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mary Thies. Going back to the start of the list, Brandon Burbach. Okay. Seeing that they're not here, I will close open time and we'll move back to the agenda. So we had just completed the presentation from OO. Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, I would like to kind of just understand what the high-level coordination that's being discussed right now between the two organizations, what those components involve. Thank you.
President Pro Tem Mabeni and Commissioner Schaefer, we have parkland surrounding the 5 or so acres that Tricia was talking about. And we want to make certain that as we look at the evolution of our lands relative to the evolution of those OO lands, those lands at the lock and dam that are largely concrete and not really supporting any wildlife, that we're actually aligning our purposes. We have a master plan that was created for the second phase of waterworks. We have a master plan that was created for all of the central riverfront. And as we've gone through this process and even other processes in the park board, I think we've realized that there might be some redirection in some of the areas that we look at adjacent to the river, particularly when you look at what we've done at places along the river, the upper river, where we've really had a focus on restoration of shoreland edges, trying to maintain more natural habitat at the edges. So when we look at higher level coordination, we're looking at the opportunity to think about how our design is going to be better aligned across a boundary that most people will never realize exists. It's a line on paper and not a real line in reality, so that we can create more coordinated experiences and actually help OO and what they're doing perhaps look at the design more broadly. We also want to be looking at how we might be doing programming in a more concerted way. The director of programs that Tricia mentioned is the gentleman named Barry Hand, who hopefully you'll get a chance to meet in the coming months, was talking about the dugout canoe program that they're doing. And it seemed incongruous to me that they would be putting their dugout canoes into a mill race, part of our European settling edgeridge. If they move just a few hundred yards upstream, where the lock and dam will no longer be used and no longer have what the Corps of Engineers refers to as the lagoon, which is separated from the river by chain link fencing with barbed wire across the top of it. We could be accessing the river in a safer way, in a more natural and probably conducive environment for the dugout canoe. So there's a range of things that we want to be doing to better align what we do as a park board with what they're doing to restore the land and celebrate Dakota culture.
Okay, thank you I wasn't sure from the presentation if we were actually going to be involved in the design process of their land or maintenance of their land, or I wasn't sure what that coordination, but it sounds like it's not that.
Commissioner Benny, I'm sorry, President Pro Tem Benny, Commissioner Schaefer, we don't know yet. That's what the coordination agreement we'll talk about. As they move through the design process, we'll better understand what we might do together or what's better separated. We don't know yet, but that's the intent of the coordination agreement, is to allow us to closely coordinate first on design, and then as we get into the design and programming and operations, better understand how we might work together on those functions.
And then just one final question. Have we ever done maintenance, design, procurement for land that is not our own at this point in time?
President Pro Tem Mabeni, Commissioner Schaefer, I don't immediately know the answer to that. I know that we are a funnel for certain kind of grants programs through the Hennepin County, what used to be called Hennepin County Youth Sports. I forget what it's called now. So we have done that before. I don't know that we've actually invested park board funds, but those are questions that require, if we were to do something like that, we would need to enter into a cooperative agreement to allow that to happen. And we're not talking about doing that now. We might get to that, but the board will have to be involved in those kinds of discussions and directions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I would just like to comment that I appreciate this update, and I feel fortunate to be in this seat. While this feels like it's really got some momentum, there's other things that the park board is aware of or involved in directly that also maybe have been long-term wish items or whatever dreams and things like that that are moving forward, that's pretty great. So congratulations to your group. And President Forney isn't here, and I think she really would have liked to be here for this presentation, so I took a note. She's grateful for all the work of OO and others. So, okay, well, thank you so much. With that, I'd like to move to the second discussion item tonight, and that is the 2022-2024 LOPET Annual Report. Deputy Superintendent Ringgold is here, and so is Claire Wilson, the Executive Director of the Loppet Foundation. And is it Loppet or Lopet? Can somebody help me? It's both? Okay. All right.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Abeni, Commissioners. I would like to introduce Claire Wilson, Executive Director of the Lopet Foundation. I'll just say a few words before I hand it over to her. I am the agreement representative for our Lopet agreement, so that's why I am presenting kind of the beginning of this presentation to you. And in that role, I'm looking at the lease agreements, I'm looking at the operating agreement, and then also managing any additional donation agreements that come forward. The role is twofold. It's one, partner, kind of working together. It's also making sure we're hitting all of the points of the agreements and that we're not falling behind on them. I can say at this point we are tip-top. We're in great shape on all of the required pieces of the agreement. Claire is going to be presenting to you tonight the annual report. It's a little bit of a bonus report, so it has, I think, an extra 6 months in it. Yep, so it comes to you with a little bit of a bonus, and it's actually strategically paired with an amendment to their operating agreement on the Admin Finance Committee, with the thought that moving forward we'd like to get into a cycle where you hear after the winter on that previous winter. What you might have experienced before is that we'd be talking about the winter that was 2 years ago, most typically when we'd be delivering the annual report. So you'll see that this is an attempt to kind of align that with something you had recently experienced. There's one other amendment we'll have on that. As you know, Claire has indicated her intent to leave on September 3rd. She's going to be moving on to DC. We'll have more conversations about that over time. This won't likely be the last time you see her before she leaves in September. There's a couple of other things that I think she wants to wrap up before that. I think in her presentation, she'll talk a little bit about the work we've done together over the time that she's been here. In particular, when she arrived, one of the main things she wanted to do was focus on the relationship between staff within Worth Park, within both Park Board as well as Lopet staff. There had been, and there continues to be some, competition for resources and spaces within that park, but really took on this focus of how do we focus on the user, whether it's golf, whether it is nature walking, whether it is winter or non-winter sports within the park, and has done a really successful job partnering with us. We have a very robust team. We've got a 2-, 3-, and 5-year work plan now that team is working together, so we're more than exceeding the requirements of the agreement in that way. So with that, I will hand it over to Claire.
Welcome.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Ringgold. I like that you're wearing your Lopet Cup. Yes, hello everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. As Deputy Superintendent Ringgold indicated, this is part of our operating agreement that we come and report to you on an annual basis. Previously, these reports had been in alignment with our fiscal year, which was September to October. We recently moved our fiscal year to better align for this reporting and for some other factors. So this is an 18-month report. You get September of 22 through April of 24. So that's 18 months, and I am thrilled to present all of that to you today. So just going to start with this beautiful picture of the trailhead just to ground us all in the beauty of this space. And this rainbow that I was super excited to capture during the snowmaking session. I just thought, one, I'd like to start with the rainbow because it's June and I'm gay and it's Pride, so happy Pride. But also because it signifies hope. And I do have so much hope for this relationship. It has been a joy to lead the Lopit, but it has been an even greater joy to get to deepen the relationship between the Lopit. And you can say Lopit or Lopit, it does not matter, whoever asked that question. It's just say it with love. But deepening these relationships between the two organizations so that we can, per our operating agreement, provide something greater than either of us could provide alone has been such a joy. And a huge piece of that has been the wisdom, guidance, and patience of Jennifer. So we're going to talk about some highlights from the past 2 years. And the first, and probably to my mind the most important, is that the trailhead has become a hub in Minneapolis for all kinds of activities. You know, we were grounded, and our origin story is cross-country skiing and mountain biking, and these core activities are still central to all the work that we do. But the trailhead has truly, through our commitment to our values, which are collaboration, growth, play, inclusion, stewardship, and anti-racism, have created a space in the park that has become a hub for all kinds of activity. So in the past, 18 months, we've hosted everything from the North High Prom to artist presentations to the Northside Achievement Zone, staff retreats, graduations, to North Point Health and Wellness retreats. When I just left, we had the Minnesota Environmental Partnership is having their annual gathering. Three Rivers was there with their outdoor education staff having a retreat. The NPRB rec staff were there just a few days ago having their retreat. It has truly become a place where I can't predict who's going to walk through the doors. And that to me is the joy of the trailhead and probably the greatest thing to come out of our operating and lease agreements. And then, of course, what we talk about the most is winter. And so we just had, I'm reporting on 2 winters, which were both extraordinary in their own way. So the winter of 22-23 was incredible. You might remember it snowed endlessly. We had higher utilization than we've probably ever had. You'll see when we talk about ski passes that we stayed steady in the number of folks who purchased ski passes. We, of course, experienced challenges because if you remember, it snowed and snowed and snowed, and the ice didn't freeze, and the ice did freeze, and then it rained, and then, so, we did experience some challenges with grooming the lakes. And then, of course, in 23-24, we experienced not only the snow drought, but the inability to make snow because of how warm the temperatures were. So that year, of course, we saw decreased utilization. It's the only time in our thresholds that we did not meet some of the thresholds just because we didn't have snow and some of our programming was disrupted. But even with that, we put on the World Cup and we continued to have a very, very successful winter. And then we've, over the last 18 months, really have leaned into the Alpine Learning Hill at Worth. We really respect and celebrate the history of alpine skiing in the park with the ski jumping and with that being a way people have engaged with the park. So we've rebranded it the Alpine Learning Hill, which is super sexy. But people love it, and we just really believe that the more we keep providing an opportunity for youth to come over and snowboard and alpine ski, the more folks we're going to get outside and connected. I also am super proud to say that this year we pioneered a partnership with Eloise Butler Wildflower Garden. Susan Wilkins, the curator there, likes to call Eloise the heart and the trailhead the hub of the park, and I love that. I'll embrace that fully. So this year we partnered, and the Lopit actually funded a naturalist from Eloise Butler to be there in the winter. And that resulted in, it was a great winter to do it since we were low on snow, but also story time and the nature card and knitting near nature and all of that resulted in over 1,000 experiences. So we are pleased to continue that partnership and celebrate that partnership. And then, of course, summer just keeps growing. I mean, I just left, camps and activities, and that continues to be our highest. It's becoming even more highly utilized in the summer than it is in the winter, and that's also very exciting. And then, of course, we hosted the Lopit Cup, which I'll talk a bit more about in the end. We do continue to make infrastructure improvements. So we have enclosed more area for programming, which was great in the winter. We enclosed more space so that we could have more indoor space. We've improved some of the stairs, some of the lighting, just continuing to tweak things where we can so that users have a more comfortable experience. We've expanded to include a lot of art in the park. So if you've been there lately, we have a great new banner, we have new murals, we have art on the fences. And so we really think that continuing to incorporate that experience into the park enhances people's experience of the park and creates more energy and excitement. We have new trailhead signage, we have expanded instructional areas for beginners, and then we have been really working on habitat restoration within the areas that we are responsible for in the operating agreement. And last year, we tackled about 3 acres worth of invasive species removal. And so we are continuing that this summer. We do that through our volunteer agreement with you all. And of course, are pursuing some more work to be able to take that work even further. But currently, we're focused on invasive species removal, and we're trying very hard to save the oaks in front of the trailhead that were impacted by the construction of the trailhead. And I'm pleased to say that Bartlett's came out and said everything that we tried last year is working, and they're looking healthier. So send the oaks your good energy. Our ongoing challenges, signage and wayfinding and worth is super difficult. We're continuing to do our part, but we are working with the park board on a project, which is, I'm sure y'all have heard about and is coming to fruition shortly. I'm not even talking about parking. It's an issue, we know. But, I think our larger issue, and one that we're just going to have to keep considering together, is climate resiliency. And what are we going to do in winters where it's not warm enough to make snow? All of our programming is impacted. We are very dependent on winter recreation. And then in the summer, frankly, we're experiencing weather like this. Last year, we had to cancel multiple camps because of the smoke. So that, from our perspective, is our greatest challenge. And we are doing a lot of work with our Lopit Environmental Action Program to do our part to address that. But that will continue to be the biggest challenge for an outdoor-centered recreation facility in the cities, obviously. Quick peek at our ski pass sales, which has just been an indicator of utilization over time. And as you can see, in 22-23, we were just shy of 21-22, and I think I'm going to attribute that just shyness to the fact that we never really got the lakes groomed. The ice was unstable. We were able to groom a few times on the lakes, but a lot of folks come to cross-country skiing through the lakes, and they purchase passes on the lakes. 23-24, last winter, those are our core ski pass buyers. Those are the humans who are going to buy ski passes no matter what. And they did, bless them. So that's just over 6,000 people in the cities will buy a ski pass no matter what. Though we do believe there's room for improvement there as well, as we continue to let folks know that we make snow, that you can come to Worth for that experience. But that's that. You'll see in the report our thresholds and the goals that were outlined in the agreement. We are now in the 6th and 7th year of our agreement and the thresholds that were baseline set previously. We continue to exceed those baseline goals for the most part, and I just pulled out a few examples. I am really proud of the Alpine lessons just because I want to track that. That's not a huge number, but I feel like that's going to keep growing, and it's pretty exciting. We've had well over 2,600 youth engagements through our programming, 275 youth of color, and that's just on the mountain bike trails. 89 to 92% of the users over the 18-month period rated their experience as excellent. You all can read through those, but we just, continue to promote our programming as much as possible, and it continues to result in high utilization. And as Deputy Superintendent Ringgold indicated, we do have an amendment to amend those thresholds slightly for the upcoming years. Just a finance update. So we also include in this report, these are not Lopit organizational finances. These are finances as they relate to the trailhead and trailhead operations per our operating agreement. You will see that in this 18-month period, we had a net loss of close to $96,000. That is twofold. One is we made significant investments in equipment. That includes updating the entirety of our rental fleet so that we had good, solid equipment for everybody who came in to rent skis or to rent bikes or for our program bikes and skis. And we also had some major equipment that had to be serviced and maintained in the past 18 months. But also, it was just a really difficult winter, and we lost a significant amount of income because of the loss of beginner experiences, lessons, rentals, et cetera, ski pass sales. So while that projects a bit of a loss, it is not reflective of the organization's finances. We are stable and strong, and in fact have grown over the past 4 years. But this is reflective of our finances as they relate to our operations in and around the trailhead. And then finally, I just always like to lift up a few of our activities beyond the scope of our agreement. And so, we're known for our events, for some of our signature events, the festival and the City Trail and the Trail Lopit. I get to see lots of y'all at these events. We now have added a Juneteenth celebration, which we just had on Saturday, and it was our second annual, and it was more than double in size from the previous year, so that was really exciting. And then we're excited on October 19th to introduce the Haha Wakabadin 5K and Lupit Lopit, which will happen at the trailhead in partnership with our cultural advisors and indigenous partners. And that will be celebrating, of course, the renaming of Bassett Creek to Haha Wakabadin, and we'll celebrate the creek and celebrate culture around Worth. We've expanded our adventures programming, which is our non-fee-based programming, to include programming for seniors, programming for littles, and provide more nature-based experiences. Again, this is in partnership with Eloise Butler. But we are seeing more and more senior usage at Worth, and this includes because of the new Worth on the Woods development, which is adjacent to the park. And we are just, striving to meet people where they are and host them at the trailhead, and that's been very exciting. We've received some funding to kick off a year of story collection. So we've collected stories from North Minneapolis elders. We're collecting stories from indigenous elders, and this is primarily around how they have utilized the park in the past. And this is to inform our future programming, to ensure that all programming is as inclusive as possible. And so these stories are informing our way forward, and it's an exciting project, and hopefully who's ever in my shoes next time will have a really cool update about that. We also have new programming that includes art. I mentioned that we have art in the park, but we also, if any of you have a craving to come take an art class, you can do that now at the Lopit, and we've expanded our paddling opportunities. Again, we're just doing everything that we can in our power to move beyond our traditional core activities and bring more people into the park and meet them where they are. And then I just want to talk a little bit, because we've had an ongoing conversation with the park board over the years around our equity work. And we have spent the past 2 years institutionalizing a lot of work to help us evolve into an anti-racist organization. That has included continuing to hire a diverse staff. It's included our commitment to inclusion. It has included the creation of an equity advisory team, which keeps us accountable internally, and to which I report. We've included and have budgeted for professional development for all staff related specifically to anti-racism training. And we have a very extensive project management tracking system where we invite the public and others to identify undesired outcomes of our programming and operations. When we identify an undesired outcome, we create a project to tackle that. So right now, we're working on our hiring and onboarding processes. We're working on our coaches training. We're working on our financial assistance to our programs. We're working on looking at how we continue to recruit and retain staff. So all of those are active equity projects, which are resulting in a change around how we operate in our culture. And we're always happy to talk more about that work. And it informs all that we do. And I do want to lift up the power of this partnership. The power of the public-private partnership has been a transformative experience for the life of Worth. So we are continuing our stewardship of the park with a 5 to 10 year habitat restoration plan that I hope to come back to speak with you all with, but we've been working with staff to formulate. We, as Deputy Superintendent Ringgold mentioned, we've created a 3-5-year work plan, strategic work plan to guide our work together, Lopit staff and relevant park board staff. We're continuing to pursue investments in the park, and I will come before you hopefully soon with some donation agreements around some continuing investments. We're partnering closely with Mary Lynn and her teams around, we have lots of teens employed right now at the park that I just left, And then we are helping to co-fund a year-round naturalist position in the park. We are also working with Green Cities Accord. We are part of their carbon offset program. And then Recreation and our Adventures program have really strengthened their programming so that we're doing a lot more programming. We've always had a strong relationship with the Minneapolis Public Schools, but now that's expanded to several rec centers, and we just hope to keep growing that so that we can bring adventure to the parks, and then the parks can come to Worth, and we can just continue that continuity of experiences for all of our youth. And then just want to end on the Stiefel Lopet Cup, which was last year I came to you and I said we would bring the world to Worth, and we did bring the world to Worth despite all the challenges of a low snow winter and all that came with that. And it really, it truly was a magical experience. I want to say Worth is a magic place. We know that. It is magical. But this experience of putting on an international event with the park board, I mean, in a public-private partnership, it stunned the world. And I will tell you that at least in the cross-country ski community, they recently at the Federal International Skiing Organization, which was the organizing body for this event, voted this the best event in the past decade. So it has been lifted up as an example, and that is, again, it is because of the work that your staff did with our staff to create that experience, and I can't thank everybody enough for the work that they did. It was having Superintendent Bangura there to welcome everyone. I mean, it was so powerful. And I included some quotes here just so that y'all could read them and see them. And I mean, I have thousands of these. I have never been in an event where 20,000 people were happy at the same time. And then wrote me to tell me about it. And so the joy and the magic that was created through that experience, I hope will be the leverage and the momentum for the rest of our partnership. And if you weren't there to experience it, I can just tell you that, and we also wanted to put that Worth the Wait to cheer for you, because what was really exciting is from the beginning we said we would center Worth, and that became the reality. People from across the country now know Worth and have written to me to talk about the park and its beauty. And when that many people gather and collectively experience joy, that's just, I think, what we've been aiming for together. So super grateful to you all, super grateful to the park board staff for helping not just to create that is but one moment in time, but this entire entity which continues to grow, and I hope provide incredible experiences of connection to the outdoors and community for Minneapolis. Sorry, I tried to run through that real fast, but I'm happy to answer any questions if folks have any.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Abeni. It's always good to see you, Claire, and I appreciate the really thorough update on the last 18 months at the Lopet. I'm particularly pleased to see that snowboarding is back and that Alpine is part of the Worth experience again. It was a huge part of my family's experience when we lived on the north side. It's where my son learned to love to be on a board. So I'm thrilled to see that it's back for people to experience here in Minneapolis. And I also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge just what a high bar you've set for a successful public-private partnership. When this partnership came before the board, I was a commissioner at that time. I was very skeptical that this could be successful and that it would be something that enhanced and enriched the park experience for people. And it's doing that. It's doing it very well, and it's doing it in ways that I never expected to even think about it happening. So that's exciting to see, and I'm just very pleased that a big part of what you've brought to the organization is this drive and desire to see collaboration happening with the park system. So it's not just what the Lopet wants, it's how do we enhance and expand upon what the park board wants to offer people in a way that makes it work. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Abeni. Well, I'll try to keep this short, although I do have an actual question about the numbers. Thank you for all that you've done. I say this as a Northsider, and I'll try not to get... When that trailhead went in, we are skeptical people up on the north side. And when something nice comes in, we think that can't possibly be for us. And I'll even the way that I know how I look in the world. I feel the North Sider's edge a lot of the time, and you personally have created a space that I don't think people expected it to be that way. I think it was like, oh, these are for the suburban skiers are going to come in, and watching how you've just infused yourself into all aspects of the community, and including, the presence up by Falwell Park. It's not missed by me and a lot of community members, and so I just want to personally say thank you. And you are not replaceable. Someone else can take the job, but it will, we'll hope for the best, but we'll miss you. I would also like to thank you and this agreement that we have such an open partnership, so we can see your numbers.
Yeah.
And I have a curious question. You mentioned the investment in the hardship of the last year. I'm noticing in one of your bylines, just because as we were chatting about it, item 5965 is interest. Was there a debt? What is that from? Some of these infrastructure improvements? I'm just trying to get a understanding, especially as you leave the organization. Like, what are we looking at? Should it be a concern or no?
President Pro Tem Fabini, Commissioner Thompson. Yes, thanks for that question. That is interest on some debt from the trailhead construction, which now has been paid off, but was reflected in the last fiscal year.
That's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that quick and concise answer. I will give up my time but I cannot thank you enough. And I just, as a person, as a commissioner, it's been an absolute delight. And I know you're not going to be gone yet, but I'm already missing you. So thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I have a question from you with your years of expertise and knowledge of this role. Do you have any message for us as commissioners in this role about how we can either improve our relationship or support the organization in a stronger way?
President Pro Tem Fabini, Commissioner Schaefer, thank you for that question. I really think that what we're modeling right now, if we can just continue to grow the strength of that, and it really, I am apt, thank you for those kind words. I can't really talk about it because I will 100% cry because I love this gig so much. But that aside, Deputy Superintendent Ringgold has led this in a way that has created the conditions for this to happen. And I think where our greatest strength lies right now is in continuing to really retain and continue this strong relationship between the staff. But also, and that's across the spectrum. That's with the recreation staff, it's with the environmental education staff, it's with the golf, with our partners in golf. I think we've all struggled to imagine the place that we're creating, and now we've shown that it's possible. And I think we're continuing to build that trust. And then just continuing to promote it through all of our different channels, I think, and just to continue to trust one another and move forward with this same momentum. It can't slow down. And I have the best staff on the planet. I'm nothing. They are fantastic. They are the ones making this happen. And you have some amazing staff who are making amazing things happen. And I think that if we can keep promoting the power of public-private partnership and trusting each other. And I'm sure Deputy Superintendent Ringgold has much more wise things to say on this, because it truly has been her vision come to life, and her guidance and patience with me in this role that's gotten us to where we are. But we all have great staff, and they all have great capacity, and I just keep trusting that they will carry us forward.
Well, I don't know if Deputy Superintendent wants to say anything, but that was your invitation.
Oh.
And then I do have one more comment.
Deputy Superintendent Ringgold.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Abeni and Commissioner Schaefer and Director Wilson. This is maybe the right moment to give a shout out to Assistant Superintendent Schroeder. Assistant Superintendent Schroeder worked tirelessly on the agreements that we are implementing at the moment. And those agreements really set this relationship different than any other relationship we have. You have a lot of partnerships as a board, you have a lot of different relationships. This one envisioned that the LOPIT would take on specific work on our behalf and established not only, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you did this, but also establish thresholds, which you will be doing some work on a little bit later tonight. And so this isn't, hey, go off and do whatever you want. This is a, hey, please get these things done on our behalf in a really great way, including following our public-facing policies, and then see what more you can make of it. And so there was some really great intentionality in how this was formed. And then I think Claire and I have had a really great opportunity to say there's a lot that went into creating Worth the way it is, the long-range plan the way it is, and there's, you know, some emotions around the different types of sports that come into that place, and we saw it as an opportunity to say, what does it look like for every user to get the best outcome of that park? So, and she's been a great partner in that, and there's still work to be done, and we'll look forward to doing that. So I'll be trying to keep her to do that.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaefer?
Well, I just want to say thank you for the culture that you have set with your team, and I think that it definitely has been demonstrated with the executive staff here too, and setting that culture in that partnership and that role model and that. And I would just like us to think about, you know, if there are things that have helped facilitate this culture, that we get those written down before you move on, and that I really see this potentially helping us with some of our volunteer relationship work that will be forward-facing for us as a board, potentially. So I really want to say thank you, because every volunteer that I have known from the LOPIT is thrilled to be a volunteer. And so I'm just grateful and say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that this is, I'm really hearing that this partnership is successful. And it sounds to me like sort of vision from both the public and the private side, and coming together and probably being good collaborators, good people that want the outcome. No, it doesn't sound like there were big egos at the table and all of that. So that's fantastic. I have a question about, you had mentioned that people stated that this public-private partnership aspect of the cup that came was unusual. I couldn't, if somebody offered me $1 million, I could never put on an event like this. I have no understanding of any of this. So can you tell me more about that? Is it mostly just a private enterprise?
Yes, President Pro Tem Abini. Yes, so typically these type of events happen in a private space. They happen if there are other sporting events in arenas or stadiums, but even for World Cup events like this outside, they're typically on privately held land of some sort. Ski resorts in the mountains, or, you know, it is very rare for one to be held in a public park. And of course, we committed to having it be free. So that also helped lend itself to that experience of it being private-public. But, you know, we had to do intensive work with Shane and with Jason and with others and Roxy, and, you know, to really make this work in a public space. I mean, it was years of planning. And people didn't necessarily, they couldn't quite name that it was a public-private partnership, but they could name that they were welcomed into a public space, that there was public art, that there was public access, that we had an audience that was far more diverse than any World Cup ski event, the history of World Cup ski events. And I think that they could sense that. And then to know that they could, you know, we had a free day that following Monday, it was President's Day, and so many people came back and were skiing the course and just like, we can just access this. This is just here, you know, you can see the skyline and you can be in this park. And so I really want to model this for other, you know, other areas. And people have, Hakan Klebo, who's the father of the most famous skier on the planet right now, just came to Worth yesterday to talk more about like how we can transform Nordic skiing through events like this. So it is just the power of a public space, I think. And typically you pay to go into a space and you don't have that same level of access for an event like this.
That is really interesting, and I really appreciate you highlighting that. because that didn't occur to me in quite that way, because I've never attended anything like this or anywhere, so thank you for that. I'd also like to say, President Forney isn't here, and she also wanted me to say how grateful she is for all of your work and for this update, and she'll be here. I think we'll see you again before the end of summer. So with that, thank you. No other questions, and I'm going to move to petitions and communications, and I'm actually going to start with Superintendent Bangura.
Thank you, President Pro Temp Abeni. I appreciate it. We had this planned, so we're good. So, if you had a chance to walk downstairs and come in, you see some new banners and things down there in the atrium area. It was funny because I didn't see it. All of a sudden I walked out there and they were there, and I was like, yeah, I didn't remember what it was, but I wanted to share with you and with our folks watching or people coming into headquarters what this is and how special it is. So I'm going to read this just to make sure I stay on target. So Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board is working to integrate truth, acknowledgement, and conciliation of Indigenous land, people, and nations into our work, our policies, our procedures, and our spaces. So the Why Treaties Matter exhibit is up from June 18th to July 21st, 2024, as a learning resource for community, staff, partners, and elected officials in the MPRB headquarters atrium. So I want to say thank you to the Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, the Minnesota Humanities Center, and the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American Indian for making this exhibit available to the Park Board. So I just wanted to just inform you and acknowledge that. What a wonderful space that's down there. And again, what we are doing in the work that we do, not only reconciliation, but the acknowledgement of our Indigenous land and the history. And to have that down there, I think is really special. So just wanted to share that with the board when you come in to what's new in the atrium area. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Commissioner Alper?
Pass.
Commissioner Olson?
Pass.
Commissioner Rucker?
Pass.
Commissioner Musich?
I am not going to pass. As we've all been experiencing, it's raining a lot. Continues to be raining a lot, just like it was when we talked about this at our last meeting. We've been very lucky in that Minnehaha Creek and the Mississippi River and Bassett Creek have largely stayed within their banks thus far. With the continued saturation of the soils, the filling of most of our storage along the creeks, we are likely to see flooding with the rainfall that is coming. Commissioner Benny and I have been getting updates from the director of the Watershed District, Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, James Whisker, just about what we should be expecting and what the impacts of this rainfall has been. And so we will likely see flooding occurring along those water bodies over the coming days and weeks, especially if it continues to rain beyond this next week or so. So stay safe out there. Please don't go into floodwaters. Don't drive around barriers. Don't bike around barriers. Please respect them. They're there for a reason. It's to keep you safe. And hopefully the rain will get back to a less intense pattern sometime soon so that we have an opportunity to let all of that water flow back out, and we can then endure more rain without the impacts of that rain. So yeah, it's our changing climate rearing its head at the moment, and I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that and let people know. Yeah, we're running out of space for water. Thanks.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes, I will just say thank you to staff for continuing to prioritize safety issues at Elliott Park, the Commons, Loring. And obviously, this past week we had an incident at West Cedar Lake. It was very disturbing. And so today, thank you to Lieutenant Noble and members of the Forestry, Natural Resources, Assets Management staff for allowing me to join them on a site visit of this location so that I'm better informed with the community on what occurred. The community is going to be, they're mobilizing a court watch group around this incident. But But this is unusual to have this kind of stranger situation in our parks. But I'm optimistic that we are going to move forward, hopefully with some ideas maybe towards the end of the summer to clear up some sight lines. So I just want to say thank you to staff for time on that and your concern that we all have for safety in our parks, because they're not accessible if they're not safe.
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you. You're reminding me of my time as a child in the lunchroom when they went by alphabetical order, and I always ate lunch last. On a modestly serious note, and I appreciate Commissioner Schaefer mentioning what happened at Cedar Lake, which is horrific. I could go on, and I won't. But thank you for highlighting that and the wonderful work of our staff and our officers to find at least some path forward with that in resolution. I did want to mention Victory Memorial Drive and the Blue Line. Former City Council President Barb Johnson, who is my neighbor, has come here tonight. She came here, I believe, when I was gone the last meeting as well. I have heard from a lot of constituents, because I think that they see us with the park board and the parkway and parkland, and all of that as a way to have their voice heard a little more specifically. And this is not just regular parkland, as former Council President Johnson stated. It is actually a memorial drive, and of course we have had lots of conversations about it already this spring. But I would just like to encourage my colleagues to maybe understand the drive a little bit better. If you don't know, you're welcome to ask me, because I love talking about my neighborhood. And once again, we will miss Claire. I will miss Claire up on the north side. Thanks.
I'll make a couple of comments. President Forney has been gone for a couple of weeks during what I would like to call as peak ribbon cutting season. So I've gone to 4 ribbon cuttings, I believe. Wow. I know. Anyway, but we opened. Commissioner Menz isn't here, so he couldn't mention Dickman Park pickleball and other amenities in that park. Nice neighborhood, St. Anthony Village neighborhood or something. Awesome. Also, Loring, there was an opening of the pickleball courts there. Beautiful setting, unbelievable. I think that the people that use it are really lucky and that's going to get a lot of use. Also, at Sibley Park, the wading pool, the zero depth entry wading pool was opened, as well as the playground. And the density of children in the pool and on the playground equipment, it was unbelievable. I mean, just pure joy. And then I also attended the Upper Harbor Terminal event as well. So a lot going on in the park system, and a lot of projects getting all the way through to ribbon cutting. It's so amazing. From understanding the needs and the needs of the community, the needs of the place itself, all the way to opening it up. That's a humongous effort. So what a great team you have here, Superintendent Bangora. Okay, with that, I'm going to recess this meeting because something might be coming forward from planning. So I will recess this committee, this meeting, and move to Operations and Environment Committee.
Thank you very much for passing the torch, President Pro Tem Abeni. The time being 6:35 p.m., I will now call to order the Operations and Environment Committee. Secretary Ringgold, if you could please take the roll.
Commissioner Benny.
Present.
Commissioner Menz, absent. Commissioner Rucker.
Here.
Vice Chair Alper.
Here.
Chair Musich.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Lovely, thank you. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Thank you very much. Seeing no lights, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We now have an agenda. We also have some minutes. Could I have someone move those, please?
So move.
Lovely. Those are the minutes of May 22nd, 2024. And I see no lights. So let's take that to a vote. All those in favor of adopting our minutes from May 22nd, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. We have adopted our minutes. Congratulations, folks. This evening, we have before us one action item. Could I please have someone move Resolution 2024-122?
I'll move it. I'll move Resolution 2024-122, resolution approving agreement for operations and maintenance of East Bank Trail underpass connection with the City of Minneapolis for East Bank Trail underpass, intersection improvements, and connection within Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park and the Above the Falls Regional Park.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Rucker. This evening, we have Carrie Christensen. She's the senior planner here at the Park Board. If we have any questions on this item. Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And with that, we have no further business, and I will adjourn the Operations and Environment Committee.
And noting the time is 6:37, I will open the Planning Committee. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Elper.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson. Absent. Chair Benny.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have one set of minutes. Would somebody move the minutes for approval and read the date too?
I'll move the Planning Committee minutes of June 5th, 2024.
Is there any discussion? No, seeing there's no discussion, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved, and I'll note that Commissioner Thompson's joined the dais again. Okay, we have a couple of action items tonight. Would somebody move the first resolution?
I'll move Resolution 2024-125, resolution approving a maintenance agreement with Minnehaha Creek Watershed District regarding the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's obligation to implement the stormwater management rule set forth pursuant to Minnesota statutes, chapters 103B and 103D within Powderhorn Park as part of the Powderhorn Park improvement projects.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? Would somebody like a presentation? I'm not seeing any lights. I'll just make the comment, this is something that's come up before, and I've talked to Assistant Superintendent Schroeder about this, that we'll definitely, I believe I'll approve this, I'll be voting for this, and we should continue to do this until such time we have an overarching or umbrella agreement in place with the watershed district. That's something that we've discussed on other improvements that were done. And that really I just like to point out that we are already obligated to do the maintenance of these systems under our NPDES permit, our stormwater permit. And so we don't need to seek outside authority when we have it already. So I just wanted to say that because we've had that conversation before, but I'll certainly approve this now. We have good partners in the watershed district, and they're doing what they have to do under their own requirements. So with that, all those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. Would somebody move the next resolution, please?
I'll move Resolution 2024-127, resolution granting temporary construction and permanent easements to Metropolitan Council for Metro Transit's use for B-Line bus rapid transit stations at Lake Street and Dean Parkway / West Bedeh-McCoska Parkway and at Lagoon Avenue and East Bedeh-McCoska Parkway, located within Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park, and reducing easement fees based upon quantitative betterments.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, any comments? Commissioner Thompson?
I just have one question, and I didn't have it until I read it myself. It landed on me. Can we define quantitative betterments? Like, what is that supposed to mean to reduce our easement fees? Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Downey.
Thank you.
Chair Benet, Commissioner Thompson. In terms of, I don't know which question you'd like me to answer first, but quantitative betterments are those betterments in which we can actually assign a dollar amount very easily. The value of a bench or a bike rack. So those are typically the way that we try to address it as quantitative. I will say that's different from qualitative, meaning that may not be something we can readily get a number that would be objectively arrived at by most people. So that was your first question. If you could remind me of the second?
Yes, it was. Because I'm curious to know then, what would a quantitative betterment look like with this permanent easement? 14, sorry. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Musich has directed me where I need to go. I apologize for this rabbit hole.
Oh, it's no problem.
If you want to
But
answer it, you
I
can.
think
but
it
I
would be
will.
good
Thank you.
to wrap up the answer, or
Yes,
answer
please,
the question.
please,
Yes.
please. Thank you.
So I don't have all of it, but I was prepared to probably reiterate the presentation I did at the previous board meeting. But the quantitative betterments are listed in the actual item, but I do have it here. There are trees that they'll be adding, and then the ADA ramp / sidewalk crosswalk, and then the last is the bike rack.
Thank
you. Are 3. I actually see the quantity of each. So
You're fantastic, and thank you. Thank you also to Commissioner Musich for alerting me that it was already answered. I apologize. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, well, I'd like to go ahead and move this forward then for a vote. All those in...
I'm sorry.
Nope.
I was
Okay.
trying to turn on my microphone.
Okay. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2024-127, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes, and it will move to the full board when we're done with our last committee meeting. With that, I will adjourn the planning committee.
All right. Well, then with that, the time being 6:43, I will call the Administration and Finance Committee to order. Can the secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer. Here. Co-Chair Rucker.
Here.
Co-Chair Thompson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would someone like to move the agenda?
I'll move our agenda.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? All in favor of our agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We have an agenda. Would someone like to move the minutes?
I'll move the Admin and Finance Committee meetings of June 5th, 2024.
Thank you so much. Any comments or questions on that? Nope. All those in favor of adding those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have some minutes. And we've just got a few resolutions if someone would like to move the first one. Thank you.
I'll move Resolution 2024-121, resolution approving construction and cost-sharing cooperative agreement with the City of Minneapolis for East Bank Trail underpass, intersection improvements, and connections within the Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park and the Above the Falls Regional Park.
Thank you. Would anyone like to see a presentation on this or have a question?
I would like to see a presentation.
Certainly. Ms. Christensen, would you like to let us know? I know we've had several items about this, unless my mind is thinking. Oh, yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Thompson, Commissioner Schaefer. So here to share some information about the agreement that is before you. Thank you for your approval of the maintenance agreement. These are really two agreements that are joined together. So this will lay the basis for the work that we are collaborating with the city on to implement a portion of the Graco Park final concept that was approved by this board. As you may know, Graco Park is well underway and nearing completion. Super exciting You know, you've approved the grant that we received for regional solicitation to implement the underpass that connects Graco Park to Boom Island, or above the falls to the Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park. There's also the Marina Bridge and improved intersection crossings there at Sibley and Plymouth, or Sibley and 8th, I believe. And so these are all, again, in the approved concept, and we're now bringing them into construction. Just to highlight some of the work that is funded by the regional solicitation process, and on a slightly different timeline than the rest of the Graco Park improvements, are the things outlined in orange here. And again, you've, that we concurred with a CADEX determination a while back that went into detail on this, so I won't spend a lot of time. But the city, of course, is a city right-of-way, Plymouth, and the bridge is it's a state aid road, and there is a lot of design review required with the city to do any kind of roadway improvements, and certainly also with their bridge department, as installing an underpass under their bridge or at the bank of their bridge under their roadway has required a lot of design coordination. One of the sort of interesting developments is that they're actually making updates to the Plymouth Avenue Bridge, and we've been able to work out, I think, in wonderful partnership, some timing where we can actually coordinate improvements for the bridge with the installation of the underpass. And so that's why now we have this construction and cost share agreement. We're really excited about it. Not only will it actually, streamline the amount of time that the bridge is closed, but we're also able to fold certain construction elements of their bridge updates on the east bank into our construction process, and they'll focus their improvements on the west side of the bridge with their own contractor. We've also, there's some cost share that they've brought to the table, things like there's a lot of mobilization and traffic coordination that needs to happen when you close a bridge, and so we'll split costs like that 50-50. Which is wonderful for project savings. So lots of great coordination happening because of the timing. And they were able to kind of expedite, and we all worked quickly to make this happen. There's a few other aspects, like they have agreed to fund, we did not have funding for a rapid flashing beacon at the intersection, and they have stepped forward to offer to fund that. And the cost share agreement goes into a lot of these types of details. But it's basically that we will construct the underpass and we'll own and operate the trail and underpass, but we will operate that under an encroachment permit granted to us by the city when the underpass is constructed. The city, as they do with most bridges in parks, they will inspect the bridge. There will also, this kind of outlines all the other types of kind of details of what the work that we're doing, including expansion joint and approach panel that would have needed to be replaced anyways with the creation of an underpass. So it basically outlines sort of what we're responsible for and what they're responsible for. It also outlines things like we'll be making vegetation, adding vegetation to the roadway, and we'll be maintaining that, which is outlined in the maintenance agreement. I think that goes into it. I did include some information around safety in the underpass, which has been an ongoing concern. And we've been very careful and strategic about how, from the very get-go of what are the sight lines from the Graco building to the underpass. We designed the park in such a way that there are clear sight lines between the building and the underpass. We've designed a very wide underpass with tall ceilings. We've included surveillance cameras. You'll see that in the cost share agreement. It's covered with a sort of, I think it's around $6,000 allocation. There is lighting both leading up to and in the underpass. There's also an art and public places program, public art concept that eventually will take shape for the underpass that we hope will have a lighting feature included in it. What else? While we are responsible for the underpass, they are still responsible for under the bridge. So that distinction between both for maintenance and emergency response, we are responsible for the trail. It'll be operated as a regional trail, And the city will be responsible for whatever happens under right-of-way or under the bridge embankment. There was some study of sort of other safety features. I can go into more detail if there's questions about that. I can go into more detail about the cost share, but I'll just stop there and see if there's any additional questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for giving that additional detail. I really appreciate it. And the stone slab section, is that the city responsibility, or is that considered part of the trail, on the sides of the trail?
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Schaefer. The stone slab are on the sides of the trail to prevent weeds, and also are sort of a raised area to prohibit sitting in the underpass. So that would be the park board, because it's inside the underpass. So anything that falls in the underpass would be considered part of the trail.
Okay. And is there embankments like this on either side of the trail, like the greenway under the bridges? The angled?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
The topography of the sides of the trail? I'm not sure if is it angled? I mean, it's not a big deal.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. So it's a flat graded trail with sort of stones on the sides of the trail, but there's no embankment similar to the greenway in that way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? I see no lights. Thank you so much. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-121, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. On to our next one. Would someone like to move it for us?
I'll move Resolution 2024-124. This is a resolution amending the 2024 Capital Improvement Program to allocate $24,250 from the 2024 Capital Construction Contingency to the PV Field Park Turf Improvement Project.
Would anyone like to see presentation? Any questions or comments? Seeing no lights, we'll take it to a vote. All those
I just have one question.
Yes, please.
I noticed the time frame on this at the work, it was bid in the fall, and then the project is already complete, and now we're approving the funding for it. If you could just speak to that order.
Chair Thompson, Commissioner Schaefer, this was a combination project with asset management. So while there's a $24,000 expenditure to have a seating contractor come in and bring their expertise, we had MEOs, park keepers, all being part of that project. So we received some pricing last fall and signed a purchase agreement, a purchase order with them, and to get the seeding done right away this spring, so we could get a good growing season in. Asset management completed that work this spring. So yes, it comes late. That's to a director that is a few months behind on his work. So, but yes, it was a combination project. That's the cool part here. Really want to thank asset management for their work.
Yep.
And yes, the expertise that was brought in by HOPCO was fantastic. But Al Starr, his crew, really took the leadership here. And for those of you who know PV Park, it's a much loved, I'll say overloved field. So asset management really struggles to, keep quality turf there. So we're just trying some new things here, and hopefully we'll have some quality turf on that soccer field.
Thank you. I really appreciate your hard work.
Yeah, seeing no lights, I'll just say also thank you, because it is an understatement to say that it is much loved. Been there many times for many events. Okay, seeing no other lights, all those in favor of Resolution 2024-124, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. On to our last item for admin and finance. Would someone like to move it for us?
I'll move Resolution 2024-129, resolution approving the First Amendment to the Loppet Operating Agreement of the Adventure and Welcome Center Outdoor Area.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Rucker. Does anyone have comment? Would you like to see more information? Anything like that? We're all feeling very positive about the law bit today. I will then move Resolution 2024-129 to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and with that, the Administration and Finance Committee is adjourned.
And I'd like to reopen or unrecess the regular meeting. And we have one item that will now move out of from the Planning Committee. And that is, I'd like to go ahead and move that then. Resolution 2024-127, resolution granting temporary construction and permanent easements to the Metropolitan Council for Metro Transit's use for Beeline Bus Rapid Transit stations at Lake Street and Dean Parkway / West Bedeh-Makaska Parkway, and at Lagoon Avenue and East Bedeh-Makaska Parkway, located within Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park, and reducing easement fees based upon quantitative betterments.
Second.
Is there any discussion, any comments? With that, I'd like to move this for a vote. All those in favor of resolution?
Take a roll call.
Thank you. And a roll call, thank you. All those in favor of 2024?
Secretary Ringgold, please.
Secretary,
take the
will you
roll.
please take the roll?
Commissioner Alper,
Aye.
Commissioner Menz, absent. Commissioner Musich,
Aye.
Commissioner Olson,
Aye.
Commissioner Rucker,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
President Pro Tem Abeni,
Aye.
President Forney absent. You have 2 absent and 7 ayes.
That passes.
Yes.
And with that, I will adjourn the regular meeting.
Under 2 hours.
Whoa. Congratulations, everyone. That was fabulous.